Is this on? Yes, it is. I hope that we entertain you and give you something to think about. And you know, we here like to promote our young performers here, our award-winning performers, you know. And this is an excellent opera for them to learn different types of things than usually. I was just talking with our director here, our president, about that particular aspect of it. I was thinking about the characters musically, about the characters in the Magic Flute. And really the tessituras, or the range of where they sing, is not so exaggerated. It's kind of on the high side in that difficult area, but it's not really high, with two notable exceptions. The Queen of the Night, who has these Fs, that's really high. Even for opera, that's very high. And Zarastro, who has 2 or 3 low Fs. So here we have these two, and they are symbolically the opposite. Here we have the Queen of the Night, and we have Mr. Goodness and Mr. Forgiving, and you know, singing at the opposite range, night and day. But anyway, I want to just set some things here for you to think about. Die Flöte is Mozart's last opera. It was premiered 1791 in what is essentially today the Theater auf der Wien. I believe in those days it had a slightly different name. That theater still exists in Vienna, although the structure is slightly different. It's not the same structure. But it's a Singspiel. A Singspiel, if you examine the word, it means song, play. Singspiel is, I guess you would say, a musical, some kind of a musical form with spoken dialogue. Yeah, it's an opera, essentially. It's an opera with spoken dialogue. And the thing about it was, in those days, in the 1700s and maybe slightly before, clear up to the middle 1800s and slightly later, there were a lot of traveling theater groups. People, there would be, if you want to call them companies, but there would be people who would form groups, and they'd go around southern Germany mostly, and in Austria, and they would give performances, usually for the common people. They weren't geared, the content of these performances wasn't geared for the aristocrats, although I'm sure a lot of them went. But it was the common, like people go around today and do shows and do, I don't know, I wouldn't say they're operettas, but they had that kind of feeling, and the subjects were usually usually plays, not in the beginning, not too much music. They were based on folk things, folk stories, whatever have you, fairy tales, and eventually they started to add music, and before you know it, kind of maybe like our vaudeville shows that they used to have. I suppose they had dancing, I'm sure they had dancing. And eventually, Singspiels became a really important part of these performances. And one of these companies, even Mozart, early Mozart, wrote music for these traveling theater groups. So did Haydn, so did Salieri, a lot of them did. And they had a group of actors that went around with them. Mozart was asked by Schikaneder, who had his own group. Schikaneder was an important person, Emanuel Schikaneder. He had his own group, and he ran this group, and he also directed the first performance, first production, directed Magic Flute, and also he sang in it. He sang the role of the Papageno. So he was quite a person. Add to that we're going through an era of the Enlightenment. This was the era of the Enlightenment, and you had these influences, Rousseau and Kant and all those people, which was very important. It affected a lot of artists and musicians. Marriage of Figaro has a lot of Age of Enlightenment ideas in it. And also Masonry. That's another important thing that happened around that. Well, it happened earlier than that. But Papa Haydn is principally responsible for having Mozart join the Masons. So this being Mozart's last opera, even though it's folksy, it's complicated. there are a lot of influences of the Enlightenment and of Masonry. I mean, you can go into and you get really obsessed with it. The number 3, the 3 chords, key of E flat, which is the Mason key because it has 3 flats in it, and the serpent in the beginning could stand for, I don't know, chaos. And I've even read someplace where the Queen of the Night was a symbol against Maria Theresa because of not wanting people to be enlightened. So there's all kinds of symbolism that you go into. But nonetheless, it's a good work. It's an interesting work. It's an involving work. And it is really, when you think about it, a fairy tale. This is really what it is down. You can add whatever you want to as far as those other elements. But it is a fairy tale. And as such, it appeals, and it appealed in those days to the, I don't want to say uneducated, but to the general masses. It appealed to them. And even to this day, it's a very popular opera. That's why children like this opera very much. I remember that I was reminded of the wonderful movie, Bergman movie of the Magic Flute. I thought it was pretty terrific. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought it was wonderful. So it's deceptive because you think, oh, it gets into detail and it demands a lot from the performers. And as such, you need some guidance for this, and you need somebody who's really not only knows the work very well and knows all the Masonic symbols and knows all the Age of Enlightenment things that you can pull out of it and knows the tessituras of these voices and et cetera, but someone who is very involved in the actually how to manifest these things and works well with the young performers, especially young gifted performers. And we're really very fortunate. I'm lucky very much, and we are here, that we have a terrific director. I think he's just absolutely terrific. And I'll let you in on a secret if you think that all directors know the words of a script, know the words of an opera. No. This is, and it seems they come in, they talk about, oh, this and this, and they really don't know the words. They know that she dropped her key and she can't find it because it's dark and his hand touches her and it's cold. He kind of knows that, or she knows that. But beyond that, Jeffrey Buchman, not only is he a wonderful director because of the elements of his own talent, but he knows these words, and he knows the words in their original language, so that it's not done by translation, especially in German, where the object is at the end of a sentence, So he knows the words as he can. He speaks these languages. He himself is a singer. I neglected last time to mention that he was a Luciano Pavarotti winner back when there was a Pavarotti competition here with the Opera of Philadelphia in those years. So he himself has, I'm sure, sung Papageno. I'm just taking a guess. You have sung Papageno, haven't you? You didn't.
But I was born to sing Papageno.
Okay. Well, yes, well, we're lucky to have him, and he has a list of credits that's just enormous. Not only important opera companies here in the United States, he's also worked a lot with universities, which is great, to work with young singers and see what's out there, what's coming on the horizon. And he's structured, he's dedicated, he has great benefits with his partner, Rosa Mercedes, who herself is a choreographer, a dancer. So everything is organized, and it's not at all concept of a director thrashing about and no. And I know our singers really enjoy him. I certainly do, and please welcome him. We're very lucky to have him. Jeffrey Buchman.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me? My mic is working. First of all, it's just really great to be back again. I was here last season for Don Giovanni, which I enjoyed so much, both working with Maestro and working with these young singers. It is, at the same time, it's unique to working with professionals, and it's exactly the same, and especially with a place like this, it really is like being at a professional company. But I'm very conscious of the fact that they're still honing craft. So while we're working, I'm doing whatever I can just to open doors for them slightly, maybe open a window just so they get new ideas kind of flowing through, seeing new possibilities within themselves as to what they can do, how they see themselves, how they envision the choices that they can make as characters and as vocal actors. So the experience of working here at AVA is a really special one for me, and it's really a pleasure to be back. First of all, with Magic Flute, as Maestro said, it really is this dichotomy. You've got the simplicity that exists in Magic Flute and the complexity at the same time. You've got the simplicity of the hedonistic desires of Papageno and the very heady ideals of Zoroastro that Tamino's trying to understand within himself. And what I really enjoyed in putting together a production of Magic Flute, and this is my fourth one, is trying to let both elements exist at the same time. Let the simplicity be there. Let people who want to enjoy the story and ride its wave in a simplistic way and just find the flow of entertainment do that. And let the people who want to look for new, interesting ways to absorb the piece have that as well. And I would say that for me, it is a fairy tale, but the question is always, how do I get into that? How do I, as an audience member, enter into that fairy tale in a way that is compelling and driving me there? And the story itself is, for me, is very much a coming-of-age tale for Tamino. It really is his journey, his passage, and his kind of movement from adolescence into manhood. And so I like to set the show with a reality period that sets us up for our departure. So in this case, we do that. I'm not sure if you've really noticed, but this room kind of has continued straight through to the stage. If you've been here before, you know that's not what the stage looks like. But it's amazing what our designers have done, taken all the detail work of the room and made this feel just like a study library inside what this space would have looked like mid-19th century. And so that's where we are in the story. We're going to start in this library study within a home, a 19th century home of someone who values learning and wisdom and reason. And in this case, it's a father who we see in the overture with his Masonic regalia come home. He puts that away. He takes out of his satchel a book of the Magic Flute, for me, as if he would have been off maybe doing a lecture to his fellow Masons on the parallels between Magic Flute and Freemasonry and all of that. And he comes home, he shows his son this book and says, you really should read this, you really should learn these important elements that you need to grasp as a young man. Boy's not that interested in that. He's got other interests at the time. Father's a little disappointed, but he moves on. And eventually we see that the boy does make his way to that book. He does start to read it. He gets totally taken with the story. He's drawn into it in a really passionate, excited way, but it's late at night and he slowly falls asleep. And as the overture's winding down, we see him fall asleep on this sofa here. And he enters into the story as Tamino. And we keep kind of one foot in our reality world and one foot in our fantasy world for a while and allow both of those to be there so he's not sure, is this a dream, is this real, what am I experiencing? But by the time we get midway through the first act, we're deeply, fully into fairy tale, but you understand that it's this young man's dream. And we'll even revisit that when we come back, the beginning of the second act. You're reminded again, I see, he's still there asleep. None of this has happened. It's all his dream. And there's wonderful things that happen along the way. One of them is his relationship with Pamina. And because I establish a reality period before we go into the fairy tale, we can add in that human element, that connection between him and who is Pamina in this reality world. Well, in this case, I make her a maid in the house. So we get that separation of class. We also then have the element of, which is in Magic Flute, which is sexism, which we hear very very well spoken from both the priest and speaker as well talks about that. Yeah, you can't listen to women. They chatter a lot. If you want to concentrate and focus, listen to men. Yeah, and Zoroaster says to Pamina, you need a man to guide you. Well, I think that in this world of enlightenment that was going on at that time, we can shift that to our time now and say that we all could still use to be a whole lot more enlightened than we think we are. I think a lot of that still applies very well. And the idea that a wise ruler like Zoroaster might need an up-and-coming wise ruler like Tamino to show him the way that, you know what, maybe women can be wise rulers too. I love that in the trials that Mozart puts Pamina to go through the trials with Tamino. That was a big deal, I think, at the time for him to do that, and it's still important. Unbelievable to say that it's still important now for us to be thinking about that, but it is. So I think it's just a perfect kind of picture of how we can play those important elements while we're just letting the fairy tale story flow along. So we look at this and just know that whatever you see here, there's so much transformation that will be happening throughout the evening. I'm not going to give any of it away now, but just know that it doesn't stay steady like this all night long. And now she's guessing what transforms. Don't tell anybody. We need secrets in this business. All right. But it really does allow for what has to be a magic flute, which is magic. A magic flute without magic just doesn't have that charm. So we put a lot of that in there. A lot of that magic and charm comes from the young singers themselves. I think that they have grasped this idea of the journey that I've been asking them to take with this. It's just a slight little turn as far as concept. I'm not a conceptual director. I really believe in the works themselves, but sometimes I just like to frame them a little bit more towards what I think will give us immediate access right into the story. And it's not to say that this is a better way than any other, but it's one that feels very natural to me. And me as an audience member, I find it very compelling. And in the end as well, it kind of wraps everything up for me quite well. I think this will be a good time maybe to start some singers. We will begin with right after the overture, when we go into Zu Hilfe, which would be the Tamino being chased by the serpent, and the three ladies are going to come to rescue him.
Hello, my name is Hannah Ludwig. I'm a third-year mezzo resident artist here, and I will be singing the role of the third lady.
Hello, my name is Claire de Monteil. I'm first year here, and I'm gonna sing First Lady.
Hello, my name is Joanna Rushi, and I'm singing Second Lady. And the three of us actually made a really exciting discovery in that Hannah is singing Third Lady as a third year, and Claire is singing First Lady as a first year, and I'm singing Second Lady as a second year. So that's how we make these casting decisions, just so you know.
Fantastic. I am Roy Hodge. I will be singing Tamino, and I am also a first year.